What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the LivBtr Podcast. I'm your host, Siano, CEO of Sabre Advisors. On today's episode, I have my friend, Giselle Ugarte, who is a renowned performance coach, content creator, and top motivational speaker. She's known for her action-forward messaging and programming designed to teach today's leaders how to be more confident, productive, and visible online and especially off. And most recently, she founded the first ever real estate talent bureau, the Talent Brokerage, representing and negotiating on behalf of some of the most influential brokers and influencers in speaking, media appearances, and brand partnerships. With a collective following of more than 500,000 people and more than 100 million views, it's no surprise TikTok named Giselle one of the top 100 women to watch in 2021. Well, she's only grown from there, and I cannot wait to talk to Giselle about what we're doing in 2025. I hope you guys get a lot from this episode. Enjoy.
I just want to have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my card, never see the receipt. Good health, we prize, but everybody around prosperity.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the LivBtr Podcast. This is your host, Siano, and this is the show for people trying to optimize every area of their life. Let's go.
I just want to have peace.
Giselle Ugarte, welcome to the LivBtr Podcast.
It's good to see you.
It's great to see you.
It's
Welcome back to New York.
I know. It's
mean,
still the same, and also so much has changed.
Yeah. Well, tell me, for my listeners, for my community, let's start from the top. Who are you? Where are you from? And then we'll get into the more recent stuff, the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Give me a little background.
I'm an online performance coach and a professional speaker, and have a couple of multi-hyphenate entrepreneur businesses as well. Was born and raised in Minnesota.
So you're used to this weather.
So I'm right now, I checked my phone. I think it said it was like negative 24 degrees right now. We're in this polar vortex, which is just insanity.
Like actual temperature is negative 24? Yeah. Like not wind chill?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Like that's a thing?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And then the wind chill is even worse. This isn't normal. Like it's legitimately, we're having like a crazy cold front right now.
It's cold in New York right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like 10, 11,
yeah,
which is very cold for New York standards.
Yeah. But in Minnesota, when it gets that cold, like it bites you.
But you still drink iced coffee.
Yes, every day.
Likewise.
Right.
Yeah, I just did. Yeah. I don't understand how that like has anything to do with the temperature. Like,
yeah,
iced coffee over everything.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Is the right time.
Yeah,
for iced coffee.
Yeah.
Always. But I will say, I'll add a little sleeve. I always ask for a sleeve.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
That's a pro tip.
Mm-hmm. So then I can at least
Pro tip.
There you go.
Okay.
My family's Tex-Mex, so Mexican family in Minnesota. Not a lot of us, but also
a lot in Arizona and Texas, not in Minnesota.
No. So when people say, "What does Tex-Mex mean?" My dad, his family, I say the border crossed them. They didn't cross the border. And then my mom became a U.S. citizen when she was 14.
Amazing.
And so grew up speaking Spanglish is what I call it. So when people are like, "Are you fluent in Spanish?" I'm like, "I'm fluent in Spanglish."
Yes.
And went to school and lived out in L.A. for 10 years. Went back to Minneapolis, which is like
USC.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Very, very USC girl. Spent some time in New York, which is when I met you. Or I think you might have been on like the Move to Giselle committee. You were one of the people who were like on the, you should totally move to New York. You should totally do it. And you have to at least sometime in your life.
Who connected us?
Chelsea Pites.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Love Chelsea.
Yeah, our mutual friend Chelsea Pites.
Speaking of Arizona, yes.
Yeah. And so the thing that I'm most passionate about is communication, connection, and confidence.
Yeah.
Something that for me is something that I've struggled with. It's a practice. And
I can't believe it's so funny to hear you say you've struggled with. Like,
yeah.
That is such a foreign concept to me, is you struggling with communication.
Absolutely. I mean, but here's the thing. People think of communication just in terms of like how you string words together. And it's so much more than that. And that's also what I coach, is that you have not just the communication that you're saying with your words, it's also what's in your head, all the voices in your head that you're having to navigate, untangle, ignore, or maybe sit down with for a moment. There's the voices in your heart, which sometimes aren't aligned with the voices in your head. And those are also just areas of communication that a lot of people neglect or shut down completely and only focus on everything that's external.
Yeah.
And so that's where when people say, oh, you're an on-camera coach, or, oh, you're a social media coach, it's so much more than that, because in order for you to be really comfortable doing something, say, like this, off the cuff, having a conversation. I don't know what you're going to ask me next. I don't know what my hair's doing. I can't see myself. It's so much more of like just being comfortable in your own skin and being able to focus on the connection that's immediately in front of you. And also thinking about who else is listening to this conversation, because it's not just you and me. It's also everyone at home, or maybe they're in their cars, or maybe you're working out while you're watching this, and believing that what you have to say matters.
Yeah.
Not just because somebody else would find it interesting, but because it matters enough to you that you believe it could help somebody else too. And so how that pans out, I'm obsessed with consuming content. I create more than I consume, and also I love to consume. I love watching preachers and teachers and coaches and business owners and politicians and even just, everyday people. I just love paying attention to how they communicate. I'm definitely a little neurodivergent for sure.
Yeah.
And so the way that I consume is an overwhelming amount of information at once. And I love to recognize patterns and look at consumer behavior and see how it's received, and just see where people are quick to react or maybe slow to respond. And I could go on and on and on, but that's how it shows up in my business in terms of preparing forward-facing leaders for some of their biggest days, or perhaps some of their closed conversations.
Sure.
And then even how I share ideas with the world on my social media, on shows like this, for how you can start looking at your everyday communication a little differently.
You said a lot, and so much of that resonates with me. I study consumer behavior, but it's interesting because in my mind, I feel like I'm not supposed to consume so much content. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when I do that, I like kind of get down on myself, or I want to create more than I consume, but I think consuming is important to create, right? So I think the way that you said it makes me feel like I'm not alone, because I don't want to be like empty scrolling and like falling down the rabbit hole, so to speak, right? I don't want to waste time and energy, but at the same time, I think it's really important to study communication, right? And what people are doing well, and maybe what to implement into your world or not, right? But I also, as much as I create content and have a podcast, I don't really look at myself as a creator. I look at myself as a business person. So I think everybody's different as far as, what is that North Star, and then what is going to help you kind of get there, so to speak.
Well, I look at it from the lens of, I always tell my clients, and something I live by is, you should be creating more than you're consuming. But creation, you mentioned you don't see yourself as a creator. I think we can look at it from the lens of you're initiating, or you're inventing, or rather than just creating content, maybe it's that you're creating conversations. Yeah. Maybe it's that you're creating actions. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of confidence and self-esteem can go away. And that's when you're being mindless, you're scrolling, you're numbing, and you're isolating.
Right.
That's where it can eat away at your self-esteem. If you're just getting upset over what you're seeing on the news or in politics, and all you're doing is maybe just the short-term gratification of sharing it to your stories, but then continuing to do nothing about it, but thinking that filled your cup enough if I did something because I let more people know what was going on in the world.
Right.
Chances are your self-esteem is going to dwindle because you're not actually doing anything to push you forward from where you were in that moment, sitting alone with your phone. Versus if you're using that moment to share it with someone, maybe a friend, to say, hey, we need to do something about this. Or if you're using it to create more content, I like to say consume to create.
Yes.
If I'm consuming something, it doesn't matter if I am listening to somebody's podcast, or lately, it's the beginning of the year, so I've been reading a lot of bills, a lot of memos politically, even a lot of lawsuits is also something I look at. And so I'm reading like hundreds of pages of documentation because nowadays you have a lot of people who are relying on, say, ChatGPT to read for them and summarize things. And when they do that, they miss key points.
Definitely.
And so I am consuming a lot, but it's so that I can create more informed content to help other people understand something that might be really difficult to grasp. And so absolutely, I love the idea of consumption because it should spark creativity. But what I don't want anyone listening to trick themselves up, and I know you've been in this place because you are creative, even if you don't consider yourself a creator, you are a creative. Like, just look at your outfit, you know, me too. And that's that we can trick ourselves into thinking that we're doing research. You know, like, have you been in that place of like, oh, I'm researching this thing. I need to learn more about it. Yeah. And then months have gone by, years have gone by. You still haven't, whatever that is, started the podcast, written the book, gone on the date, you know, started the business. Yeah. And so don't trick yourself into thinking that you're doing quote unquote research, but really you're not actually moving. So how are you consuming to actually move yourself forward and to create?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, see, I'm a big time doer. So like if I have an idea, even if it's not a highly vetted out idea, I'm ready to run with it, you know, which on the opposite extreme could also become a flaw, right? Where I'm not the person who's like sitting and, you know, researching for months. Like, no, I'm implementing, we're rolling with it. If it doesn't work, off to the next. And I think it's really important because momentum and like just so many great businesses started as something else and then evolved into what it is, what we know it as today, right? So I just think if you want to do something, you have to just do it, just go. What's the best thing that you've discovered by creating content? Like, what's the best byproduct of you creating content? In your personal life, in your life?
There was something that happened to me back in 2019. And at this point in my life, mind you, even if we're going back in time here, so before I became a coach, I worked at an advertising agency. Before I did that, I was an on-air personality on radio and on TV. Before I did that, because nobody was giving me a job, I was a blogger. And that was a time when people did not know what BLOG, how to even pronounce it. Yeah. Like, influencer was not a job title. I was just putting videos up on YouTube for practice, honestly thinking that no one would see them. Very opposite from the way that people think about YouTube now. They want the whole world to see it. They want to go viral. I don't want anyone to see it. I was so green, meaning like I was so vanilla. I didn't have a personality. I wasn't comfortable in myself. I needed to get comfortable in front of the camera. And I was just like uploading videos. And so I came from this world of outfits of the day and makeup tutorials, and I worked with a lot of makeup brands. It was the kind of thing where I didn't want anyone to see it, but people ended up seeing it, and it opened up this window of opportunity. What it also created, though, for me was because I was so set on being an on-camera personality, I had this irrational idea of perfection, of what it took to be in front of the camera. I needed to be a certain weight. My skin had to be perfect. My makeup had to be perfect. My hair had to be perfect. And if not, I couldn't film that day. I couldn't record that day. I had to say every single word perfect. In 2019, I was at this place in my life where I woke up one day and my body was covered in hives. Like, inexplicably hives. And I thought it was just like, oh, maybe I'm having an allergy. I don't know what's going on. Fast forward, these hives don't go away for a week. I go to the emergency room multiple times and they have no answer. They don't know what caused it. They don't know how to cure it other than just take these steroids. And it was like the highest dose of steroids. And I just felt so bloated, so anxious. Fast forward a month, I'd put on 20 pounds. Fast forward 2 months, I'd put on almost 40 pounds. And I was still covered in hives. I couldn't wear makeup. I couldn't wear jeans. I could barely hug people. Like, physical contact was leading me to cover myself in these hives. And mind you, my backdrop for this is perfection. Instagram perfection, over-filtered perfection, Facetune, let me tuck this in here, let me smooth this out here, and all of a sudden I can't even wear makeup. And I'm like, again, 40 pounds heavier. And there was a part of me at the beginning that thought, well, I can just, for at least a month, I can, do a little bit of touching on my face to calm down the redness. I can tuck this little piece in here because eventually I'm going to lose the weight and it's going to be fine. Well, it wasn't fine, and months were going by. I had no answers, and I finally uploaded a photo on Instagram of what I looked like without any makeup on, of what my body looked like, completely just swollen and bloated, and let people know what I was struggling with. And I didn't think necessarily that anyone was going to be like, oh my God, you're so fat. Like, I didn't think that, but I did feel like I would be seen as like, I don't know, a fraud or fake or I'm so sad for her. And it ended up opening up this incredible door of connection of so many people that said, thank you so much for sharing this. I went through that, or I'm going through that, or when I was pregnant and this helped me, or I don't know what you're going through, but I totally know what it feels like to look in the mirror and not recognize your face or your body. And that was the moment when I stopped using filters, because there was this level of authenticity and connection that greatly surpassed any perfect photo I had ever posted before that moment. Yeah. And that's something that is so ingrained into all of my teachings in coaching, in speaking, is the filter is fucking you up. Like, you don't think it's that big of a deal. And if you're listening to this and you're like, Giselle, I've never used filters, congratulations, in which case let's think about the metaphorical filters that maybe you are using. Sure. But you have a lot of people who use filters and think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's just like makeup. It's not like makeup. Yeah. A lot of the cameras inside of our apps already have a filter built in. If not, it's just kind of like a delay of what our actual camera is, because you're having to go through the program. And so the resolution's just a little bit lower. If you then put a subtle filter on top of that, like, it's not even that you're filtering out like any imperfections that makeup could cover. It's that you're filtering out the features of your face that just make you human.
Right.
And there are women who will use filters on top of that. So now you're 3 filters deep. Yeah. And you think, oh, but this is giving me the confidence to create, Giselle. Aren't you just like going against what you just talked about? Well, then, for example, you look at TikTok in 2020, which is right after I was going through all of this. Early TikTok did not have filters. Early TikTok didn't even have a rewind button. Early TikTok was only videos. And research showed that people who spent extended periods of time on that platform at that time felt better about themselves versus other platforms that made them feel worse. Right. And they were actually more inspired to put themselves out there because nobody was using filters. And so it felt like you were FaceTiming with a friend, or like the person on the other side was actually who they said that they were. Yeah. And the self-esteem that I see, the connections that I hear about from my clients who drop the filters, it is nothing short of extraordinary in terms of you drop the filter and all of a sudden you start accepting just less bullshit in your life in general. Yeah. Where all of a sudden you realize, oh, that person, like, why are they lying to me from the moment that we meet? Why is that something that for them is like the top priority for why they feel they are worthy enough to speak? And so that has been the greatest factor, contributor for how content has changed, is really the connection. Yeah. But also, as I put out more content, I become more comfortable with myself. As I become more comfortable with myself, I've been able to make a bigger impact on the world and meet more awesome people who I feel like that's my people. Yeah. Like, that's when you know, because the biggest disappointment is when you follow someone on social media and then you meet them in real life and they're nothing like this character that they create themselves to be, versus the person that you're like, yeah, that's who I see every day. That's my person. That's my people.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, because I think, there's such a mental health is, I think everybody has their own issues, whether they're open about it or not, right? And social media is definitely playing a major role, especially in young people. And, what you just described is a little foreign to me, because I don't use filters. I don't care necessarily how I look like when I'm deciding to record or whatever. But it's interesting, because when I started using video and watching myself on video, I definitely was very critical of my weight, of being hungover, just certain things that were eye-opening to me about seeing myself on the other side. Like, that was crazy to me. And I, as a result, have used video to really enhance my life. And I stopped drinking years ago because I just always wanted to be ready, right? Like, no matter, I couldn't just get myself together like on a Wednesday when we were doing this thing, right? Like, at a certain point, in order to be great at anything, I feel like you have to just be ready, right? Like, not on, but ready. Like, if you said, hey, Jay, like, by the way, do you want to come do this? Like, I have to be ready for that, right? So it's all about the reps and the practice and, the talking on camera and just getting comfortable in any situation, I think, which is tremendous. But yeah, I mean, I definitely changed myself in such a major way since 2016 when I started vlogging. Like, that was one of the best things that happened to me was, and I only started vlogging to generate awareness for my business, so it was like, I'll do whatever it takes to grow my business, right? Because that's my livelihood, right? So, but along the way, these things happened where I mean, my life is so different today. And I truly am just such a better person.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm intentional about being a better person every day. And I put the work in every day, like whether I want to or not. And that, it's consistency, it's discipline, it's doing the hard shit, doing the things that most people don't want to do. And that's what I think is really interesting about you. When you said earlier in the conversation that, you were insecure about like communicating, I see you as like one of the best communicators, like so intelligent, so consistent, and truly like helping other people and being passionate about that, and just the great work that you do. So it's nice to hear that even you are insecure about what I would consider your superpower. So yeah, of course.
Well, it's I like to say confidence is not the absence of insecurity, it's the embracement of it.
Totally.
It's just it's that, like, it's just recognizing, oh, we all have them. And that's something that I've noticed even from every single client that I work with.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you are fresh out of college or if you are a millionaire, billionaire. Everybody comes into, my space and they question, are people going to care what I have to say?
Yeah.
Like, if they're coming to me, that's what they're wondering. Like,
totally.
I don't know, like, but are people going to care? Or like, I don't know, like, should I really be doing this? Should I really be sharing this? But I want to know, when you were getting on video, did you feel like, you mentioned you'd see yourself like hungover, for example.
Yeah.
Was it the kind of thing where the camera doesn't lie and you would be looking back at video immediately, or you'd look back at video like maybe it was months ago and you'd look at yourself and just be like, man, or like, explain what that.
Yeah, I think for me it was, dealing with a lot of trauma with the loss of my mother, like I was a big partier in the nightclub world, a DJ, things of that nature. But I think that I looked at the loss of my mom as, well, I was just in a really dark place, and it became a little bit of an excuse to just continue the party, so to speak, right through my like early mid-20s. And I just wanted to numb myself because I couldn't deal with the fact that my mom was gone, so I got to a place, I want to say, like, call it 10 years later in my mid-30s, and then like up until around 40, where I was just like, you know what, maybe I'm not the person that I think I am, right? Because I feel like not only do I have everyone else fooled, yeah, like I'm really only fooling myself, right? And that, like, seeing myself, because you're not, unless you're looking in a mirror at, for a brief period of time, you're not really seeing yourself. And I had a moment, I can't recall exactly when it was, but I was just looking at myself, and I wasn't proud of the person that I was. Not I was successful by like the American standards of success, right? Married, kids, beautiful family, successful career, all the things. But I'm like, I'm not being honest with myself about like my level of happiness. And that's internal. Like, I felt pretty fulfilled, and I was checking the boxes, but something was missing, and I realized in that moment that I needed to work on myself, and that's where I started to remove alcohol for prolonged periods of time, because for me it was that was my filter, right? Like I don't use filters on social media, but alcohol was my filter. When you said, hey, Giselle, if you don't use filters, well, maybe there's
something.
Yeah.
Maybe you're hiding behind something.
Yeah.
When I was going through that period when I was really sick, I mean, I went to so many different doctors who could not give me an answer. They could not give me anything. And I used the word numbing. I just numbed the pain, like the physical pain, but also the emotional toll in so many of those destructive ways, where it would be, drinking, or even if it was just the pain medication or like Benadryl or just whatever it was to just like cloud whatever I needed, because I'm sure even anyone listening, my whole body in hives from the bottoms of my feet to the top of my scalp and every single crevice in between. And when I was using filters, I also didn't realize that it was keeping me from seeing how sick I had become.
Yeah.
Not in terms of just the physical swelling and the illness, but also in terms of, we all know what that swollen face looks like when you're drinking consistently, and how red you are, how tired your panda eyes are, which I always have panda eyes. It's just, but that was a wake up moment for me, because where there are a lot of people that are like, well, I don't want to take the picture until I lose the baby weight, or, well, I don't know, I'm getting too old for this. Or I want to lose the COVID weight is still a thing that we're hearing now in 2025.
Yeah, but not to cut you off, but the picture is what helped me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like the fact that regardless of how I looked or how I acted or whatever it was, I was never like, I'm not going to do this because I look this way. And then seeing myself that way was really the eye-opening moment for me that changed everything. It's great. Because I also I used to get anxiety after drinking. So that was like a main
Which makes
reason.
sense.
Yeah.
I totally, as soon as you said that, I thought about this feeling of you wake up the next morning, and it doesn't matter if you wake up alone. It doesn't matter if you weren't your worst self, but there's just, I would just have this feeling of I really wish I could just erase whatever happened for the last 12 hours.
Even if something bad didn't happen. But it's your head plays tricks on you too, where you're just it's depressing, It's just like a depressing loop. And for somebody who has a crutch or a vice, it's like you spend so much time thinking about that thing that you're just wasting your time and energy. It's crazy, right? To the point where it's just, it's not easy to get over that hump, so to speak, even with social media, right? Who am I to be putting myself on camera every day, right? When you create content, you're putting yourself out there, and you're putting yourself out there with the people closest to you in your life. Those are the ones that are like, what are you doing? Why are you, right? And it's not going to make sense to everybody, but the benefits for me have been so positive, macro perspective, right? And it doesn't need to be for everybody, and not everybody needs to understand, why we do it, right? You just need to, but I don't understand people who give people grief for doing it, that's, dude, you're not even in the arena, right? The man in the arena, right? But it's similar actually, getting out of the woods. Once you're using social media for so long, are people really going to say to you, your friends at the dinner table are going to be like, why are you using it? it's a waste of their time or breath at a certain point. Same with alcohol. You know, for me, like when I stopped drinking, my friends would be like, come on, it's my birthday. Da, 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 da. Like after years, it's like it doesn't even come up. It's like, oh, I made it through those like times where it was okay for people to make comments about stuff that might have you second guess, you know, why you're doing these things.
Well, and sometimes I think that the ones who love you the most are the worst at doing that.
They are.
And the ones who love you the most are the ones who it gets under your skin the most.
Totally.
And I have, you know, I grew up in a house full of boys. I have 2 big brothers, but I say like I grew up with all of their football and basketball and baseball teams in our house. Like it was never empty.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, I was treated like one of the boys in that they would give me all of the crap because the way boys talk to each other, like way harder than how girls talk about each other behind their backs.
Yes.
And so on the one hand, I had to toughen my skin because of what they would say to my face. At the same time, I'm also like their little baby girl.
Yeah.
So it's like they want to be protective. And so then when you mix both of those things together, what you end up getting is this formula of a lot of unsolicited advice and feedback. No one asked for it. And yet they feel like they need to be the ones to protect you from harm, not realizing that you just need to figure it out on your own.
Sure.
And it's something that I feel like I've continued to navigate even as an adult. And I still do get comments from time to time. But what's changed is that I've done enough work on myself to where I know that they mean well, or that it's coming from their own place of fear or hurt. Because let's think about it. If someone is telling you, are you sure you want to start that business? Did you really want to upload that video? Are they actually concerned for you? And also, are they projecting their own fear of what they themselves would not have the confidence to be able to do?
Yeah.
So there's that piece. But then also, there are certain things that for me used to get under my skin that now I can roll off in such a way. I don't need to have a conversation. I don't need to ask the question, oh, why would you say something like that? I don't need to pick a fight. I also don't need to retaliate and try to jab them right back. I can just keep moving on with my life. But that's also part of the work where when you start working on yourself, all of a sudden it like opens this door where you want to wish therapy or cold plunges or
literally
like on everyone.
Yeah.
Not realizing that when you get to the other side, you recognize that you can love someone exactly as they are without doing any of the work, and you can just keep working on yourself and you can coexist, and maybe there's going to be part of your relationship that won't exist any longer, but also that doesn't mean that you have to cut this person off from your life or enable them into self-destruction, but that you can still like love each other. But all of that to say, usually, and even I would put this on the listener, catch yourself when you are getting ready to speak illy of someone for putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
Like, think about that for a moment. If you're going, oh my gosh, she looks so cringe. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he would wear that. Catch yourself.
Yeah.
And even go, where's that coming from? That I'm legitimately talking shit about someone for putting themselves out there and expressing themselves in a way that they haven't before. Yeah, maybe they're not being their authentic selves yet, but they're doing something new, and perhaps they're doing something that you yourself don't have the confidence to do.
Yes.
So if you want to do it better, go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it in your own way. Go.
Totally. No, I agree. I mean, I always say that the people that are like actually doing the damn thing, like you're too busy to like spend your time, just hating on other people, watching content and like spewing negative energy and things of that nature. But switching gears for a second, you've done a bunch with Gary Vaynerchuk. What would you say is the best thing that you've learned from working with Gary?
I remember, so the first time that I worked with Gary, it was actually my first paid speaking gig.
Okay.
And he was coming to an event at Mayo in Rochester, Minnesota. And one of the coordinators called me just to invite me to attend the event. And I had been writing over and over and over again in his book, Crushing It, which transparently I actually never have fully finished, but it's in my office. It's cute. And I just wrote like, I'm going to work with Gary Vee. I'm going to work with Gary Vee. I'm going to share a stage with Gary Vee. And I don't know what came out of me on that phone call other than just all of the work I'd put into that moment. But I just said, well, do you guys have an opener? I could open for you. And they were like, you would do that? As if I was doing them a favor.
Right. Amazing.
As if I was doing them a favor. And I was like, yeah. I mean, I think I have time in my schedule. I'm pretty sure I can get there early enough. They're like, that'd be amazing. How much would you charge for that? Mind you, first paid speaking gig. He talks about this all the time, which is makes this even more exciting to hear. I hadn't seen that video yet, Jason. And I just said, $500? And they were like, sure, absolutely. They Venmo'd me within an hour. I later found out he charged $100,000 for that event. So it was a steal. But the greatest thing that I've learned from working around Gary Vee is at that time, I thought that the most valuable person to meet was Gary. But what I then realized after being a part of this event was that the most valuable people that I met were everybody around Gary.
His ecosystem.
The whole ecosystem. Yeah. Pay attention to the ones who are getting you coffee. Pay attention to the ones who are prepping you. Pay attention to who they surround themselves with, whether it is how they talk to their assistant, or if it is that they have their publicist, or maybe it's that they don't even have a big group of people around them. And so I actually feel like the greatest lesson has just been recognizing that you think you want to meet the big name. And sometimes it is, especially if you're a peer to that person. But if you're still in that place of learning, sometimes the most valuable people you can meet, it's not that person. It's all of the people who make and made that person. And I didn't realize that that was actually something that, again, back to my like neurodivergent, putting the puzzle pieces together brain of when I was a teenager living in Minnesota, where there weren't people who had, not a lot of people who had like crazy dreams like I did of going out to LA and being on TV, is I would find someone. And granted, we had libraries back then and very limited. I don't even know if Google was like the thing. I think I was even using like AOL search or something, or like, I don't know, whatever, Netscape Navigator. But I would find someone who I admired, make, Oprah Winfrey or Barbara Walters or Juliana Rancic or Maria Menounos. Those were all people who were on my TV screens at the time when I was in high school. And I would look them up and I would try to figure out, okay, starting at my age, if I can find any information, how did they get from my age to where they are today? And I'm someone who, the way that my brain works, I recognize patterns.
Sure. And
so I noticed, for example, all 4 of them did pageants. Maybe I should do pageants. I noticed all of them, whether it was, they did internships, or she coached with this person, or her agent is this person, or she lived in this city, or what was their climb like, where I really feel like a lot of times we think that a person is going to have all of the answers. I believe it's their path that has all of the answers. Because I've even noticed from interviewing so many people and even asking the question of, how did you get to where you are now? A lot of them will say, I don't know. I just luck, and I'm totally a person of faith. So I absolutely believe in being in the right place and at the right time. And also I can recognize, okay, it was not just that. You took this class, you met this person, you vacationed over here and in this particular city, and also you worked this many days, or you put in this many hours, or maybe it was an instrument that your parents made you play when you were younger, or maybe it was your parents or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Like seeing, whether you had a parent who delusionally believed in you.
Yeah.
And just allowed for you to be exactly who you are. That's one competitive advantage that nobody talks about. And also the one who they didn't have anyone to believe in them. In fact, they were told constantly that they were nothing. And yet there was just something that they knew was bigger than them that gave them just the tenacity to keep going. And I love studying people in power, but even I just finished reading the book Melania by Melania Trump. I love reading First Lady memoirs.
Interesting.
Where you think, oh, let's look at the president. I love looking at who's around this person.
Yeah.
What was it like from their lens? Not only because I'm curious to know how power dynamics and marriages work, just for my own selfish curiosity.
Your own benefit, yes.
But also because again, they see what the person who's too close, what's the saying? You can't look at the ingredients when you're stuck inside the box. They're the ones who are looking in on it. And that's even what I love and where I feel my superpower is as a coach is, yes, there's the part of me that I have to use myself as an instrument, but I love being able to look in on someone and put all the puzzle pieces together to figure out why they are the way that they are and how we can amplify what that is exactly as they are, but maybe dialed up or, in the direction of where they truly want to go. Yeah.
It's interesting because there's where I spend my time on the business strategy side for brands and humans. There's an art and a science to everything, right? So like mapping out what you're talking about, like actually breaking down an individual and like mapping out their process is interesting because ultimately I don't think people realize that, if you set your mind on something, whatever that thing is, there's a path to get there, right? Like you might have to sacrifice a lot of other things and spend a ridiculous amount of waking hours getting there over decades, right?
Yeah.
But it's possible. And, I think when you look at it how you just said, that anybody can implement those things into their life. And the more that you're surrounding yourselves with really unique people that are super, high performing in every sense of the word, you also realize how low performing you are, right? Like that's what happened to me, right? Like part of me was like, I think that I'm like the best at so many different things. And then being around these people, right? And spending time with people that are just in a completely different league has helped me realize how much I have to go, right? Like how much I have to shift and adjust certain things to even become a fraction of what they've become. And it worked. And it continues to.
Yeah. But how awesome is that? And I'm curious because there are so many people who, if they are the dumbest person in the room or the slowest person at the gym or, the weakest person, rather than them feeling inspired to better themselves, they feel worse about themselves or they don't want to go back. And so
that's where the discipline and consistency comes
How have you been able to distinguish that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm oftentimes in situations physically for sure where I'm surrounded by people that the worst person in that environment is so far beyond me from a athletic standpoint that's what got me, so obsessed with training and doing the things, day in and day out to not like embarrass myself the next time I'm in that situation, so to speak, right? So it's just kind of wanting it bad, right? Because ultimately, like when you're in these rooms of really high performing people, yeah, you might be at the bottom, but when you get into an average room, you're at the top. And that's not putting down average people. I think everybody has superpowers and everybody has the ability to become the best at whatever they want to become the best at. I think ultimately you're average because you're not putting the energy there and doing the work. So that's a choice, right? So that's a choice. And that's no matter if you decide to do something day in and day out, right? And do it when you don't feel like doing it. It's so cliche, but it's just so true.
Yeah.
Right? You could become a completely different person.
Now that you have kids, which I don't have kids.
Yeah.
Do you think that competitiveness, is it something that you're born with or is it something that can be taught or acquired?
I think there's both, I think I've always been competitive on some level, but not to the point where I would have thought that I would I would strive to be the best at something, like best in the world at something, right? So, and I think with my kids, it's funny because part of me has always been lazy, right? But nobody would ever today see me as lazy, right? But with them, like I see them as lazy, right? So to answer that question, it's like,
wait,
what
does that even mean? What does Jason like perceive as lazy? I want to know that too.
Yeah. You're the guest on the podcast.
I know,
but what do I perceive as lazy? I mean, I truly, I want to be able to get the most out of a day, but that doesn't mean work. That doesn't, right? It's getting the most out of a day, like being on a mountain snowboarding this weekend. Yeah. I want to make sure that we're up relatively early on the mountain so the kids can get the reps in, because my whole goal snowboarding with them is that they can get good enough to snowboard with me.
Right.
So when we go to an amazing mountain, that we're snowboarding, as opposed to me standing on the mountain on my heel edge, crushing my legs for 3 days in a row, to the point where, I'm older now. So I literally had a tough time, walking towards the end of the last day because I was on my heel edge the entire day waiting for my son.
Right.
My son was falling a lot more than he had to fall because he's out of shape, right? He just doesn't have the strength in his legs. He's not, so, and again, like, I won't say that to him, but, because that's terrible. Yeah, like that's not who I am as a parent, but it's like, at a certain point, I'm there to get the job done. Right? I took them for 3 days solo while my wife was out of town to get them on the mountain and train them, So like that's, if they don't want to go, if they don't want to, it's okay. They don't have to be into it because I am. But if they want to do it and they just want to stop because it's hard or it's, like that's where
we're going to do it.
I call it lazy. Yeah. Giselle, this has been amazing. We could probably talk for another 5 hours straight. But you have speaking engagements. You're here for Inman. And what are you excited about?
I'm at this place in my life. Someone just yesterday on Instagram asked, what can we expect from 2025, Giselle? As if it was like this new chapter or this new era. And I feel like I'm at this place right now where rather than thinking of what's this new version of Giselle going to be, I'm kind of going back in my years and picking up the pieces and figuring out where there might have been pieces of me that got a little lost or that I started to chip away at or that I maybe made smaller in my attempts to perhaps appease someone else or because maybe I thought I was doing something wrong or because I wanted to be liked.
Yeah.
And I'm, now I have lost the weight. And I am in remission.
You look great.
Thank you.
I didn't get as far into it as I would like to learn, obviously. But
it's still, and I say, like, just take the fat photo because me thinking that I was going to lose the weight in 2 months, it ended up taking me 4 years. It was a really long journey. And I took pictures at every single shape and size and color. But I do think that, that was an event among some others where and also the pandemic, let's be real,
of course,
where a lot of us maybe forgot about certain hobbies or interests that we had, or even people who we would hang out with, or just, parts of us that we changed. So I'm picking up some of those pieces. I'm finding the things that really make me me and finding my sparkle again. And I'm looking forward to how I'm going to share that with the world. My own podcast will be coming out a little later this year. I'm writing a book right now too. So I'm looking forward to just the continued gifts of whatever this year is going to present and how I'll be able to receive it.
And where can everybody find you?
Instagram's where I play the hardest.
Nice.
I'm also on TikTok and LinkedIn.
We didn't get into TikTok, but that's a story.
I mean, that's changing day by day, so it's probably for the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there was anything in this episode that particularly hit you, I would love to connect or hear what it was. And Giselle Ugarte is where you can find me.
You're awesome.
So good to see you. Thanks for having me.
See you.
Yay.
I just want to have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my card, never see the receipt. Good health, we proud, but everybody around prosperity. I just want to have peace.